Hey, what's going on, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking out the channel. Much appreciated. If you could, subscribe here and also subscribe to the Tobin and Leroy show on the WQAM YouTube page. I always link that in the description. If you guys could check us on out there, we're live every single weekday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And want to get into a couple things regarding to the Heat's big men today. And we'll start off with this, a happy 26th birthday to Bam Adebayo, who, of course, is one of the cornerstones of this franchise. You know, multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time All-Second-Team defense. You know, crazy to me that he still hasn't been first team. I think that's one of the biggest crimes out there as far as award season is concerned. This guy is so damn good. And it's just looked upon as like one of the cornerstones since he's been with this franchise. I remember being on a boat in a boat, like I was on a fishing boat. But I was on a Carnival cruise. We were doing a broadcast. And Alonzo Mourning sat down with us. We got to sit down with Zoe. We got to sit down with Shaq. And Zoe sat down with us. We asked him about Bam Adebayo. And he called his shot on him. He was like, I think this guy's going to lead us to the promised land, lead us to a championship, and I think we're going to raise his jersey in the rafters. And that was when Bam was 19. You know, that was Bam right after his rookie season. Nice role player for the Heat, but hadn't stepped into that starting role yet, which he would going into that season. And Zoe nailed it. And they've really been talking about this. I remember asking like Zoe about this, D-Wade about this. And they all call this from just a very young age with Bam Adebayo. So to see him now, prime of his career, he's going into year 6 with the Miami Heat. And, you know, I think every year you just look at it, you can't be more thrilled with his improvement that he brings to the table every single year. And I think this year, I think the Heat fan did get a true appreciation for what he brings to the table every single playoffs. You know, I know people always want just like the monster scoring games and all that type of stuff, but what he has to bring from a defensive standpoint for this team, facilitating. You saw him in certain games really break the Bucks late in that series, break the Celtics at certain points with his facilitating, with him being able to bring up the ball. Really, the only thing we haven't seen in Bam's game is the three-point shot. I mean, that's the only thing. He warms up. Like, there was a point where he wasn't even practicing it. He does practice it before every game. And I'm not trying to do like one of the lines from the great Tony Fiorentino there. Like, he does practice that shot before every game. We would see it a little bit. I remember looking at Jason Jackson. I was filling in on the broadcast, doing pregame, and it was the first preseason game, and Bam hit a 3, and we both like looked at each other longingly, like it was just it was a moment. Jackson and I, we know that moment, that look in our eyes together, and we thought, was that going to be a part of Bam's arsenal? And I do think to a degree that would be like the next thing this year. Like, I would like him to just use this regular season, right? Like, we used this regular season and it was an up and down thing, right? But I do think it would be cool if Bam started using it a little bit. Just take one a game. What's the harm? One a game. Just mix it in there. He certainly got the cachet to do it. And you take 1 to 2 of those a game. You see where it goes, just so he has it in the arsenal. Even if it's a trailing 3 with him bringing it up the break, you know, and everybody sags off him, and he just throws it up there. I would love to see that. That would be kind of like the next thing. I'm not dying for it. I don't think it's like one of those things that is like super necessary that the Heat have to have from him. But I do think that from my standpoint, I look at that and I'm like, man, if he could just tinker with that a little bit. Because, you know, with the big men that they have around him, and this is where I kind of want to segue into, is that is always how to fit. You have to have somebody who can shoot next to Bam because they don't have him shoot. You know, they use him as kind of this offensive hub. He kicks out to guys. So I do think that would be kind of the cool next development. And I think it does, you know, he's still at the age where he's probably got 3-4 years of not having to think about this, but I do think it'll help you age as a player as well if you add that to your arsenal. So that's the one thing I would like to see from Bam this year. You know, if we could get into the standpoint of him hitting some threes this year. He only hit 1. He took 12 shots from downtown, which is double what he did the year before. But a lot of these were like end of the shot clock and things like that. So I would like to see Bam Adebayo throw that into the arsenal just a little bit this year. Just a little bit. I'm not demanding it. I think we were at a point where we were like, come on, that's got to be the next thing, is he's got to add the 3. But I just want to see a sprinkling of it. and then continue to always just, I think, one of the things that's just been so impressive about his game has been the improvement on the free throw shooting. I mean, career high 80% this year. He's just done such a marvelous job at improving on that since, he shot under 70%, his first All-Star season. So he's really gone and done a marvelous job of improving from that standpoint. And, happy birthday to Bam. He needs it, he deserves it. Have a great birthday out there, Bam. But I do want to switch on over to a couple of things with regarding the big men, and that is Orlando Robinson. He was named first team all summer league, which was well deserved. Orlando Robinson was an absolute monster, kind of a marvel, to be honest with you. I mean, we all went into this summer league and we were excited about, I think, two things mainly, and that was Nikola Jovic, who I think delivered on that excitement. I think that people were very excited about what they saw from the young 20-year-old and seeing what he is developing into, to see his physicality, see him get to the free throw line as much as he did, see him take those rebounds, get out on the run. Caron Butler really marveled at his leadership. But he did get banged up towards the end of Summer League. Then he went off to go play with the Serbian national team, which I think is going to be cool for him too. I think that's going to be an interesting experience. But Orlando Robinson, and then the other one was, of course, Jaime Jaquez, which we got just a flash of. So, I think that was probably the most disappointing thing about Jaime Jaquez. And I will say, I'm not going to do the thing where I'm already regretting the pick. But you all saw that Cam Whitmore was the Summer League MVP, and everybody. I'm not a draftnik guy, but everybody was like, "Oh man, Cam Whitmore! I can't believe this guy's going to fall to the Miami Heat." And that just seemed like that did seem like if the Heat was going to, take a guy that's happened with them, Caron, Justice Winslow, where a guy who everybody thought of as super talented kind of fell to them. So I was kind of surprised that when that all was playing out in the draft room, I think we were all a little surprised that they didn't go in that direction. He ends up going to Houston, and he wins the Summer League MVP. So good for Cam. But it does leave a little bit of, man, we didn't even get to see what Jaquez brought, because I think some people were wondering, well, is Jaquez going to be perfect fit for this team? I think everybody looks at him and thinks that, and Caron Butler gave voice to this on my show last week, just that, people are going to see what a special talent he is. He's disappointed even that the fans didn't get to see a little bit of what he can bring to the table, but he's going to bring a lot to the table. But all that aside, Orlando Robinson was a marvel. I mean, he was amazing, and even what he was able to bring from downtown this postseason was pretty special. I was like, wow, he really was going to it and wore it. The Heat always like that. They like this with Max Strus. They like this when a young guy takes leadership of a team, has that mentality, doesn't hang his head, and you could see at certain games with Orlando, he was, not pleased with the offensive start that he was going to, and even getting back to it, Bam was big into his ear of him staying with it, with him bringing that ferocity to the table. And man, I mean, one of the biggest scoring games in the summer league. Seemed like he was putting up 25 a night in this summer league. He was just tremendous, and it's interesting because this same day that he was named first team all summer league, Omer Yurtseven, Big Yurt, he was signed by the Utah Jazz. He signed a deal with the Utah Jazz. So, for Lando to kind of show immediately, hey, the guy I replaced, the Heat feel good about it. The Heat feel good with the guy that they went with instead of Omer. I think that they got to be feeling pretty good about it. And this is not a slight at Big Yurt. I was a big fan of Big Yurt. Very cool guy. That dude opened eyes with 2 summer league games. I mean, he was so dominant. Everybody was like, "Oh man!" Remember that he were rushing to sign him because his agent he didn't have him locked up. They just had him on the roster. That's not the same thing with Orlando. Orlando they had on a standard contract, but they had to rush to go sign Omer Yurtseven because everybody was like, "Oh, this guy's just for the taking." And so the Heat, after 2 summer league games, they had to lock in on Omer. And I think for his standpoint, it's unfortunate that he had the injury last year and that he wasn't able to contribute, I think, in the way that he could in his mind. And now he goes to a Utah team that's young. They also have a young center in Walker Kessler who's very impressive. They got Kelly Olynyk. So, I think there'll be some chances for him to get some run, but I think it was interesting because his agent definitely voiced some frustration of him leaving and thinking that I believe he referred to it as a wasted year for Omer. That's always a tough thing because you're the Heat and you're in this fight, this dogfight to make the playoffs, and your original plans were scratched, and you don't know if you have a time to wait for a young guy to develop. In a much bigger landscape, it's kind of what they're dealing with Tyler, right? One of the reasons that I think that the Heat are going after stars and Tyler's on the table because it's like, I don't know if we have time for Tyler to develop all the way and let him get into his prime. I think we need to kind of speed up the process there a little bit. But on a smaller scale, that was kind of the same thing what happened with Yurt this season, where I agree. Would have liked to see a little bit more Cody Zeller than would have liked to see a little bit more Omer Yurtseven than Cody Zeller. Yeah, I would, but. Spo's going to play who he can trust, and a lot of the times he's going to defer to the older player. That does seem to be the avenue that he goes with, especially with his bigs. His guards, he'll roll the dice on some youth a little bit more, but with the bigs, he really values veteran guys who play balls to the wall and just give everything they got for as much as they can for their 2 4-minute stints or their 2 7-minute stints that they're going to be in there playing for Bam. But happy birthday to Bam. Congrats to Orlando Robinson, and congrats to Omer Yurtseven, with his future team.